with silent films, we're going to talk about one of the unique ones. Todd Browning definitely liked absurdities, abnormal kind of things.
Yeah, it's weird when you think of Dracula as kind of his standard film because it's really not as odd as a lot of his other oddities.
Yeah, and we talk about one of his oddities. We're going to talk about The Unknown.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. So once again, thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great deals, great content, and an opportunity to tell us what movies we can review on a future episode. With, of course, a shout out to you as well. Today we're going to talk about a Lon Chaney film that I don't think a lot of people know about. I mean, we know about him like from the Universal Pictures and stuff like that. The Man of a Thousand Faces.
Yes. And you think this movie is unknown?
Oh, Jesus. All right.
Criminal Alonzo is hiding in a circus as Alonzo the Armless, who throws knives with his feet. He's in love with the ringmaster's daughter, Nanon, who fears being touched by men. What will happen when she discovers that he actually has arms?
That is a very young Joan Crawford. I think her first full-featured film.
Yeah, she credits it as a big stepping stone for her, which is interesting, again, because it is less talked about significantly. Yeah. So I would say up until the 2023 restoration that Criterion did, this movie was basically out of the discussion.
And, right, it gets under the radar of a lot of Todd Browning's films because of Freaks, because of Dracula, but I think it's one of his most compelling. This is the first time I've ever seen it. I didn't know about it till you brought it up. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because I thought I knew Todd Browning films.
Yeah, when you think Todd Browning, Lon Chaney, Joan Crawford, you don't think I haven't at least heard of the title before. But that's how I was a couple years ago when someone introduced me to it. Was like, no, you've got to check this one out. And I said, obviously this movie doesn't exist. But in fact, it kind of didn't exist. It was lost for decades until a copy of it was found. I think it was 1973 or so. It was found in the French Cinematheque with all of these canisters of film. And the reason why is because they actually used the French term for unknown on the canisters if they didn't know what the movie was.
Oh.
And there was The Unknown with unknown, and I think it kind of got
boxed in.
Just placed in with all these unknown films. So there was that, and then I think there was another print of the film that had more footage that was kind of merged together. So most of the copies you'll find in streaming nowadays are merged. A lot of them will have one of the newer scores on it.
And we are, on average, I think we're losing 100 silent films a year just from deterioration and no way to copy them.
Yeah. It's a losing battle because we're not getting that. We're not many people are diving into silent film and actually putting them on like a physical media version where that thing can be replicated.
Yep.
And so we are fighting a losing battle. There's some great groups, including like the Silent Film Club, which goes through and actually tries to update some of these older films, get them on a hard disk to be able to keep them around.
It's kind of crudely edited, but it's also kind of a crudely film. You're talking about a Lon Chaney who's kind of a gypsy circus performer who's kind of hiding his disfigurement to be on stage for the circus. I had a lot of this is Prestige vibes with this more than anything. I was like, this is kind of like a blend of Nightmare Alley and Prestige kind of together, and I can kind of see the roots of it very much. I don't know if that's the inspiration for those films, but I think if you like those films, you probably like this kind of genre story as well.
Yeah, you can tell he was always kind of interested in what was deemed at the time of the dregs of society. That would be like Freaks, that would be like this film. Yeah, and I think that's why you get that kind of the undetermined trilogy of Sideshow shockers, which also included The Mystic. Some very out there kind of characters, and he even said himself he was fascinated by the idea of personal repercussions when losing limbs. What would happen to you from a mental state? Like, what do you go through when you lose a part of yourself? Things like phantom limb syndrome, which we wouldn't have really had discussion of back then, but what happens to your mind when you lose parts of yourself?
Not to mention, he has to maintain the illusion without any arms, so he can't have any physical contact, even though Lon Chaney's character is in love with Joan Crawford's character. But you can never be that true intimacy.
Yeah. And in fact, the politics of the characters involved reminds me so much of a kind of far more regarded film, a 90s Italian film called Cemetery Man, which is about an impotent cemetery man who's lying about it and actually has a surgical procedure done to make him impotent because he's with a woman that can't be with a man who's not impotent. So it's like he like gives up part of that himself, and then he finds that she's less interested in him either way. And there's a lot of that kind of dynamic going on here. Of he actually is like thinking, should I just get rid of the arms because I'm in love, which is such a 20s silent film thing to do, is to get rid of my limbs because I love someone so much.
There was an episode of Coupling where the guy pretends he doesn't have any legs, and the woman falls in love with him, and then he's like, let's go, now we can go make out, and he's like, no.
Could we stay?
Cut my legs off. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have that combination of the Czech print and the French print, which gets most of the film together. There are rumors that there was footage of Alonso's character kind of as a criminal before he made it to the circus. I don't think it's as necessary. Maybe if I were to see the footage, I might think otherwise, but it's nice to pick it up with the film where it is, because we get to discover the layers of his kind of treachery and the things that he's hiding as the other characters do, and kind of have that overseeing eye on the film.
What you're really winning with this movie is Lon Chaney's faces, his expressions, his torment. We love to see Lon Chaney suffering.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we're winning here.
Yeah, and of that time period when you had genres and you had genres in the silent film world, you would have these repeat actors, because a lot of these people would go on to do things like, you know, the Phantom of the Opera. Lon Chaney was in that. A Hunchback of Notre Dame. A lot of the characters and actors in this film were in that film as well from the 20s. So you have this kind of recurring element of people being in silent films, being known for that genre. Lon Chaney really was like, you know, we call him the man of 1,000 faces.
Yeah.
He really was, though. And I think what's so amazing is that he still stands on his own, separate from his son, in the abilities that they both carried through. Like, Lon Chaney's a very different performer than Lon Chaney Jr. was. And that's really unique to have, is that they both made horror their realm, and they both made it their own as well.
Movie's pretty quick. It's just a little bit over an hour, I think. There's definitely this tension throughout the whole movie, and I do love, it really pays off at the end. The ending is fantastic. There is a great payoff. They kind of foretelegraphs it to you in a very nice way, a very cinematic way of Lon Chaney. Interesting.
Yeah.
This sinister kind of a thing. But right, I think it's wonderful storytelling. Check out a lot more silent films.
Yeah, I think what's cool about this one is that I don't even know if you need the title cards. Like, I watched a version of the film that had some really nice title cards, but I don't know that you even need it, because it's so well telegraphed with the body language, which is, again, something that you would almost miss by having a character who doesn't have limbs, because body performance is so much part of silent film.
And we don't know if those are the real, authentic title cards. There's a lot of discrepancies of genuine, which ones are generally inserted, or maybe through a copy they just put their own. Well, yeah, or sometimes the music is not really the authentic music.
Well, and you have, of course, you have a French print and a Czech print, so putting it into English, there's a translation element to it that has to be maintained.
Yeah.
And keeping with that, I think that's the difficult thing, is go after these silent films because they're disappearing. Go after them, find the ones you love, and then make sure that they exist again. But I think you're right about the ending. The ending is so great because it's really separate from the rest of the story. Like, we get to a place with the film where it could just have an ending, and then it's kind of almost a tacked on, like, I'm out of options and this is what I'm going to do. And he makes a horrible decision that is such a Tales from the Crypt-esque decision that is going to ruin him and everyone around him.
Right.
And I love, you know me, I love Tales from the Crypt endings where a character is just driven to madness and makes a poor decision because of it.
It was made just before the Great Depression, so I think it kind of probably forgotten because a lot of people don't want to see tormented movies after the Great Depression. That's another suggestion, or the reasons it got lost through a lot of the conversation. Burt Lancaster said it's one of his favorite films of all time. So, yeah, please check out Unknown.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for recommending it.
Well, it's tough to do like silent films because you do wonder how they will carry through. There are some silent films that just don't have that carry through as talkies kind of took over. But you've got films like this one. You've got, there's tons of movies that just don't get talked about. And I think silent film is the hardest sell. Like, even more so than black and white. When I was a teenager, I had black and white movies I loved, and there was at least one or two friends of mine that would never come over to watch them because they just said to themselves they're black and white. And I think what's even worse, take away the sound. Yeah. And I think take a chance on a silent film. I think this is a solid actually one to start because it's a very simple story of just a few characters. And I do think that the body language is more important than the title cards. And if you can exist, it's got a great score to it now. Yeah. Check out Unknown. I think it's streaming.
I really do. I strongly recommend too, especially if you love the Universal horrors and Lon Chaney and everything. Really, check it out.
Yeah. So That'll do it for our episode on The Unknown. Clearly, it's a recommendation from both of us.
Now you know.
Let us know down in the comment section what you thought about the film. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Those are free things. Do free things for us, and then you can go watch the free streaming The Unknown somewhere on a streaming service. You can also check out my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com. We got a bunch of the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival reviews up there, including the new release, Friendship. So check that out.
Thanks for watching.